The 6-Month Discipline Blueprint, How to Engineer a New Life. Introduction, the 6-month contract. If you gave yourself just 6 months, 6 months of focused, unapologetic discipline with no excuses and no distractions, your entire life could look completely different. And if that sentence made you pause, good. Because most people scroll right past the very idea that could set them free. They're looking for a shortcut, a secret, a hack. But the truth isn't a secret, it's a system. And you're just a few moments away from receiving the blueprint. This isn't just another motivational talk. This is for the person who is genuinely tired. Tired of wasting time. Tired of watching others build while they stay stuck. Tired of feeling like their potential is a debt they can never repay. This audiobook is a contract. A contract between you and your future self. If you walk away now, nothing changes. You already know that. But if you stay, if you commit to this process, you will walk away with a mindset that no longer relies on fleeting motivation ever again. You will learn to run on discipline. If you are ready to stop wishing and start building, this audiobook is your blueprint. And if you're serious about your journey to success, make sure you've subscribed to our channel. The work starts now. Chapter 1. The Brutal Audit, Facing What's Holding You Back. This is where the real work begins. Not with a new planner or a list of ambitious goals, but with a moment of unflinching, brutal honesty. The first step in engineering a new life is to conduct a thorough audit of the one you're living right now. You cannot build a skyscraper on a rotten foundation, and you cannot construct a future of strength and success while you are still clinging to the habits, excuses, and mental models that are quietly poisoning your progress. You cannot fix what you refuse to face, and let's be clear, most people spend their entire lives avoiding this step. They dance around the truth. They construct elaborate stories to justify their mediocrity. They blame their past, their circumstances, their boss, their lack of luck. Anyone and anything but the person staring back at them in the mirror. This avoidance feels comfortable for a moment, but it is the slow-acting venom that paralyzes potential. So, for the next few minutes, I want you to sit with this. No distractions. Get brutally honest with yourself. Not emotional, not dramatic, just clinical. Like an engineer assessing a failing structure, you must identify the weak points before you can reinforce them. Ask yourself this question: what is actually ruining my life? Let that question land. Don't rush to an answer. What are you doing day in and day out that is actively holding you back? What thoughts do you repeatedly entertain that make you feel small, incapable, or unworthy? What choices are you making, knowing full well they are leading you down a path to nowhere? I remember coaching a tech executive a few years ago. Incredibly brilliant man. He had a vision for his company that was revolutionary, but his personal life was in shambles, and his energy was perpetually drained. He kept blaming the stress of his job. But when we did this audit, the truth was much simpler. It wasn't the job. It was the 2 hours of mindless scrolling he did every night before bed, the junk food he ate to cope with stress, and the toxic friendship he kept tolerating because he was afraid of a difficult conversation. The job was the symptom, not the disease. His real problem was a complete lack of personal standards. Your problem is likely just as simple and just as hidden in plain sight. For many, the culprit is procrastination. It's a quiet killer. You tell yourself, I'll get serious tomorrow, but tomorrow becomes next week, next month, next year, and you exist in a perpetual state of about to start. Nothing changes because the decision to act is always one day away. Your life becomes a collection of unstarted projects and broken promises to yourself. For others, it's an addiction. And I don't just mean the obvious ones. I'm talking about the addiction to comfort, the addiction to distraction. The moment things get hard, the moment you feel a pang of boredom or uncertainty, you retreat. You escape into your phone, into a video game, into food, into anything that provides a momentary hit of dopamine and shields you from the discomfort of real work. This escape becomes your primary routine, and the life you want to build remains a distant fantasy, and for a significant number, The poison is in their mindset. A constant loop of self-doubt, fear, and negative expectation. They don't trust themselves to follow through. They don't believe they are capable of real, significant growth. So they shrink. They play small. They self-sabotage at the first sign of progress because deep down they feel success is for other people. This mindset becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, a prison with walls built of their own limiting beliefs. Sometimes the audit reveals that the saboteurs are external, the people you surround yourself with, the friends who roll their eyes when you talk about your ambitions, the family members who remind you to be realistic, the partner who is comfortable with stagnation and resents your desire for growth. You have to recognize these influences, not with hatred or anger, but with strategic clarity. These people are not going where you intend to go. And perhaps the most brutal part of this audit is admitting that you are the one allowing them to stay. You are the one saying yes to invitations that drain you. You are the one avoiding the conflict required to set a boundary. You are the one settling for a stagnant environment because you fear being alone more than you desire to grow. These are hard truths to swallow, but they are necessary. Your 6-month transformation doesn't begin when you buy the gym membership. It begins the moment you stop lying to yourself. It begins when you look at your life with radical honesty and declare, I am no longer available for this. I'm not living this way anymore. I see what is hurting me, and I am done allowing it to have power over me. That is the moment your life begins to move. Not when you watch another video, not when you read another book, but when you confront the truth and make a decision rooted in self-respect. And this decision demands action. It requires you to change how you show up. If you're waking up late, stumbling through your day on autopilot, wasting your most precious hours, you already know that's a problem. You don't need me to tell you. You need to change it. You know which foods leave you feeling sluggish and unmotivated. You know which online arguments steal your focus and poison your mood. You know which habits you perform in secret that leave you feeling a deep sense of shame and disappointment. That is the truth you must face. It's not complex. It's just uncomfortable. And we live in a society that has taught us to avoid discomfort at all costs. But let me be clear, growth does not care about your comfort. Progress doesn't negotiate with your feelings. They both respond to one thing, committed action. So take inventory. Right now, pause this audiobook if you have to. Get out a piece of paper or open a new note on your phone. Write it down. Put it directly in front of your face. What behaviors are leading you to regret instead of progress? What thoughts are stealing your confidence? What people are draining your energy? What excuses are you tired of telling yourself? Once you have this list, you have your enemy in sight. You have a target. You can't fix everything in one day, and you shouldn't try. But you can start today. You can choose one thing from that list and declare war on it. If social media is wasting 3 hours of your day, delete the apps from your phone for the next week. That's a start. If junk food is destroying your energy, commit to cleaning up just 1 meal a day. That's a start. If a specific person leaves you feeling drained every time you speak to them, decide to create space. Don't answer their call for a few days. That's a start. It is not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. Every single time you eliminate something that is ruining your life, you create a vacuum. And you can then fill that space with something better, something that serves the person you are becoming. This is also about what you tolerate from yourself. Stop tolerating mediocrity in your own behavior. Stop tolerating weak effort. Stop accepting the same old story you've been telling yourself about why you can't. You can. You just haven't forced yourself to yet. These next 6 months can fundamentally alter the trajectory of your entire life, but only if you are honest about what needs to change. Most people want to skip this part. They want the 7-step plan, the magic morning routine, the checklist for success. But none of that architecture will hold if the foundation is compromised. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to begin the process of removing what you already know is wrong. That is where your strength begins to build. That is where your self-respect begins to return. And the more honest you are in this audit, the faster your life will change. You'll start to see it in small ways first. You'll wake up with a little more clarity. You'll feel better in your own skin. You'll catch yourself making a better choice and feel a quiet sense of pride. You'll begin to believe that you can actually do this. And then, choice by choice, day by day, everything starts to shift. But it all starts here. With this brutal, uncomfortable, and absolutely essential audit. Be honest, not just once, but every single day. Constantly ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now helping me or hurting me? And be willing to face the answer without flinching. That is how you begin to engineer a new life. Not by luck, not by chance, but by getting real, getting serious, and getting to work. You've already wasted enough time. Now it's time to change. And that change begins by telling yourself the truth, especially when it hurts. Because once you do that, really do that, you take your power back. And from that position of power, anything is possible. Chapter 2. Demolishing self-sabotage, breaking the habits that weaken you. If you want to look in the mirror 6 months from now and see a person you genuinely respect, you have to stop doing the things that make you hate yourself. It's that simple and that difficult. You already know which habits are breaking you down. You don't need a guru to point them out. You know what actions leave you feeling empty, weak, undisciplined, or disappointed. You live with the residue of those choices every single day. And you cannot continue to engage in that cycle of self-sabotage and expect your life to magically improve. It won't. You can't wake up every morning and perform actions that silently fill you with shame and expect your confidence to grow. The math doesn't work. The system is flawed. There are habits you've built over months or even years that seemed insignificant at first. Maybe you picked them up during a difficult period in your life as a coping mechanism. Maybe they offered a temporary sense of comfort or escape. But now those habits have turned into chains. You use them to hide, to avoid responsibility, to delay the life you know deep down you are capable of living. And every single time you retreat to them, a part of you shrinks. Your ambition gets a little quieter. Your self-respect erodes just a little bit more. That isn't a lack of discipline. That is an act of self-abandonment. You look in the mirror and you know the truth. You're not proud of the way you've been living. You're not proud of how you manage your time, your energy, your body, or your mind. And that honesty, that raw acknowledgement is precisely where the change begins. Because once you are honest about the true cost of these habits, you can't unsee it. You can no longer pretend they are harmless indulgences. They are not small things. They are the reason you wake up tired and uninspired. They are the reason you avoid the important work that could move your life forward. They are the reason you don't respect yourself the way you should. And this isn't about aiming for some impossible standard of perfection. This is about getting fundamentally tired of living as a version of yourself that you do not admire. It's about recognizing a simple, strategic truth. Every habit is either building you up or breaking you down. There is no neutral ground. You don't need to be harsh with yourself. You need to be real with yourself. If you fuel your body with garbage all day, scroll endlessly through meaningless content, consistently skip workouts, and fill your precious free time with low-quality, passive routines, you will not like your life. But worse, you will start to feel like someone who doesn't deserve a better one. The truth is, you've developed habits that have trained you to settle. They've trained you to numb your emotions instead of processing them. They've trained you to avoid difficult decisions instead of facing them head-on. And over time, this builds a quiet, insidious form of self-loathing. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow erosion. But one day, you wake up and feel completely disconnected from the person you want to be. You feel like you're wasting your life, that your potential is slipping through your fingers like sand. And when that feeling becomes your new normal, you stop expecting more from yourself. That is the true danger of these habits. They lower your standards without your permission. They whisper to you that discipline is too hard, that consistency is for other people, that you're just not built for it. But you are. You are simply buried under layers of behavior that were never designed to help you grow. They were designed for comfort. They were designed for survival. But you are no longer in a season of survival. You are in a season of building. And if you're going to demolish these habits, you must stop negotiating with them. The part of your brain that wants to stay comfortable is a master negotiator. It will always have a good reason to start tomorrow. Just one more day. You're too tired today. You deserve a break. Every time you listen to that voice and agree to its terms, you are trading your future for a moment of ease. You are losing time you will never ever get back. You break these habits not through brute force, but through strategic replacement. You identify a destructive habit and you replace it with one that aligns with the person you intend to become. You stop numbing your feelings and start dealing with your life directly. You stop leaking your energy on trivialities and start directing it with purpose. You wake up and you establish a new, non-negotiable rule for yourself. No more actions that leave me feeling ashamed. That is a powerful operational rule. And when you commit to following it, your self-respect begins to return almost immediately. It starts small. Maybe when you wake up, instead of instinctively reaching for your phone to flood your brain with other people's lives, you get up and take care of your own. You drink a full glass of water. You stretch your body. You step outside for 5 minutes of sunlight. You own the first moments of your day. Maybe you stop eating the processed foods that you know make you feel sluggish and irritable. You cook a simple, clean meal. You slow down and give your body the fuel it actually needs to perform. I had a client, a brilliant writer, who was crippled by writer's block. We discovered his block consistently appeared around 2 p.m. After a brief audit, we found his lunch was always a heavy, carb-loaded meal that tanked his energy. We replaced it with a clean protein and vegetable meal. His writer's block vanished within a week. It wasn't a creativity problem. It was a fuel problem. Maybe you start writing down your thoughts in a journal instead of letting them spin endlessly in your head. You process what's actually going on in your mind instead of running from it. These are not massive, earth-shattering changes, but they are profoundly powerful because they prove something critical to your subconscious mind. You are not a slave to your old habits. You are in control, and yes, it will be uncomfortable at first. Of course it will be. Those old habits have become your default programming. They're the well-worn grooves in your brain you turn to for comfort. So when you start to carve new paths, your brain will resist. You will feel that magnetic pull to go back to what's easy, what's familiar. That is not a sign of weakness. It's just programming. You've wired your system to seek out those behaviors, and now you must begin the deliberate process of rewiring it. You don't do this by trying to change everything at once. That's a recipe for overwhelm and failure. You pick one thing, one behavior that makes you feel weak, one habit that ruins your mood, and you eliminate it. You replace it with something better. You execute that one change every single day for 1 week. Then you add another. You rebuild your personal operating system slowly, but with relentless intention. And here is the secret to this process. The more of these self-sabotaging habits you break, the more personal power you will feel returning to you. It's a tangible feeling. You'll notice your thoughts becoming clearer. Your physical energy will increase. Your emotions will feel lighter, more stable. You are no longer carrying the heavy, invisible weight of guilt from actions you regret. You are no longer at war with yourself every day. You start to feel like someone you can rely on, and that feeling is the key that unlocks everything else. Because once you trust yourself again, your entire world gets easier. You stop hesitating on important decisions. You stop needing external motivation to get started. You stop second-guessing your own worth. You simply show up because that is who you are now. You have systematically built a version of yourself that is not ruled by comfort or laziness or addiction. You have engineered someone who is in control. But none of this can happen if you keep repeating the same destructive cycle. If you wake up tomorrow and do exactly what you did today, you will get the same results. You will feel the same quiet frustration. You will look in the mirror and see the same flicker of disappointment. You have to decide right now that you are done living that way. You owe it to your future self to live differently. Not next month, not next year. Now, you do not need a perfect plan. You need a fierce commitment, a decision that from this day forward, your habits will be in alignment with your vision. And that means you are going to be uncomfortable. You are going to feel the urge to quit. You are going to want to retreat to what is easy. That is the moment you must double down. That is the moment you must remember that change only happens when you persist through the resistance long enough to see the results. And 6 months is more than enough time. If you stay consistent for half a year, you can become unrecognizable to your former self. But it all begins with one choice. Stop doing what makes you hate yourself. Stop letting those old habits run your life. Replace them one by one with actions you can be proud of. You will still fail on some days. That is part of the process. But you will not quit. You will get back up. You will keep showing up. You will keep rising above your past. You will keep engineering a version of yourself that reflects strength, clarity, and unshakable self-respect. Soon, the person you used to be, the one who hid behind bad habits, will be gone. And in their place will be someone who shows up for their goals, someone who lives with discipline, someone who leads their own life. That is who you are building now. Keep going. You are not far from becoming everything you were meant to be. Chapter 3, The Architecture of Discipline, Engineering Your Daily Routine for Growth. If you want to witness the difference between a life of accidental outcomes and a life of engineered success, look no further than the first hour of the day. The average person wakes up to an alarm. It snooze once or twice and then, from the warmth of their bed, immediately reaches for their phone. Within seconds, their mind is flooded. Emails from a demanding boss, negative news headlines, perfectly curated social media feeds showcasing other people's highlight reels. Their heart rate quickens. Their mind starts racing. They are reacting. They are defending. The day has barely begun, and they are already behind, already losing, their precious mental energy already being siphoned off by an agenda that is not their own. The day is not a strategic plan. It's a series of uncontrolled reactions. Now contrast that with the person who is building, the person who is serious. They wake up at a set time. They do not touch their phone. The first hour of their day belongs to them. It is a sacred, protected block of time dedicated to priming their body and mind. They move, they think, they plan. They step into the chaos of the world not as a victim, but as a commander. They have already won the first and most important battle of the day, the battle against their own inertia. Growth does not happen by accident. It is the direct result of a structured, intentional daily process. And to achieve the kind of transformation we are talking about in these 6 months, you need a routine, not a casual list of nice-to-do things, not a routine that keeps you busy but unproductive. You need to design an architecture for your day, a routine that forces you to grow, a routine that holds you to a higher standard whether you feel motivated or not, a system that builds discipline as its primary output. Most people fail at this for one of 2 reasons. First, they overcomplicate it. They download a list of 17 things successful people do before 7 a.m. and try to implement it all at once. They're meditating, journaling, doing a high-intensity workout, reading 50 pages, and planning their entire quarter before the sun is up. They last for 3 days, burn out, and collapse back into their old habits, convinced that they just aren't a routine person. The second reason they fail is that their routine is too passive. They mistake simple activity for progress. They might wake up on time and make coffee, but they spend that time scrolling, listening to a distracting podcast, or just wandering aimlessly. There is no challenge. There is no intention. Their routine is designed for comfort. And as we've established, comfort is the enemy of growth. You are going to build something different. You are going to build a simple, powerful, and non-negotiable architecture. It starts by being ruthless about what truly matters. Not what looks productive on Instagram, but what actually changes your energy, builds your confidence, and protects your focus. Let's start with the cornerstone of your entire day, the first hour. Your mission is to own this hour. It is yours. Before your family needs you, before your boss needs you, before the world starts screaming for your attention, you invest in yourself. I once worked with a graphic designer who was in a massive creative slump. She was talented, but she felt completely uninspired, constantly fighting procrastination. She told me, "Peter, my creativity is gone." She was convinced she needed a new job or a long vacation. I asked her to walk me through the first hour of her day. It was pure chaos. Waking up late, rushing through coffee, arguing with her kids, and scrolling through design forums that made her feel inadequate before she even opened her own projects. I told her, "Your creativity isn't gone. It's just suffocating. It never has a chance to breathe." We didn't change her job. We changed her morning. We engineered a 60-minute routine that was just for her. A short walk, 5 minutes of silent sketching with no objective, and a healthy breakfast in a quiet corner of her house. Within 2 weeks, her creative block had vanished. She hadn't found new inspiration. She had created the conditions for her existing inspiration to surface. Your routine is about creating the conditions for success. So, let's build yours. It will have a few core pillars. Don't add more! Master these. The first pillar is to prime your body. The moment you get out of bed, your first action should be physical, not mental. Don't check your phone. Don't start planning. Change your physical state. This achieves 2 critical things. First, it immediately breaks the powerful pull of sleep and lethargy. Second, it sends a clear signal to your brain. We are in command. This can be incredibly simple. Drink a full glass of water. Step outside and get 5 minutes of sunlight. Do 10 minutes of light stretching. Go for a 15-minute walk. The goal isn't to crush a workout. The goal is to wake up your physiology, get blood and oxygen flowing to your brain, and score a simple, undeniable victory in the first few minutes of your day. You followed through. That's a win. The second pillar is to calibrate your mind. After you've moved your body, you must protect your mind from uncontrolled input. Most people start their day consuming. You will start your day creating or clarifying. This is non-negotiable. You are training your mind to be a creator, not a reactor. Again, keep it simple. Choose one. You could journal for 5 minutes. Not a Dear Diary entry, but a strategic brain dump. What's on your mind? What's your biggest priority today? What are you grateful for? This clears the mental clutter. Or you could take 5 minutes to review your goals, the big ones for this 6-month period. Reread them, visualize them, reconnect with your why. Or you could simply sit in silence for 5 minutes, focusing only on your breath. The point is not what you do, but what you don't do. You don't let the noise of the world become the first thing you hear. You listen to your own signal first. The third pillar is to fuel your machine. You wouldn't put cheap, dirty fuel in a high-performance engine. Yet people do it to their bodies every single day and wonder why they lack focus and energy. What you eat for your first meal sets the trajectory for your blood sugar, your mood, and your cognitive function for hours. I'm not going to give you a diet plan, but I am giving you a principle. Eat a breakfast that is high in protein and healthy fats, and low in sugar and refined carbohydrates. A sugary cereal or a pastry will give you a quick spike of energy, followed by a hard crash an hour later, leaving you reaching for more coffee and feeling foggy. Protein and fat provide sustained energy. This simple choice, eggs instead of a bagel, a protein shake instead of a muffin, is a strategic decision that will pay dividends in your focus and productivity all morning long. And the final pillar, perhaps the most important for daily progress, is to set the mission. Before you officially start your work, you must identify your single most important task for the day. Your MIT, the one thing that, if you get it done, will make the day a win regardless of what else happens. Write it down on a sticky note and put it on your computer. This single act defeats the feeling of being overwhelmed. It gives you a clear target. Instead of looking at a to-do list with 20 items, you have one primary mission. You attack that mission first with your best energy before the distractions of the day can derail you. And I know this might sound hard. It might sound rigid or unenjoyable. If you're feeling a sense of resistance to this, that's a good sign. It means you're challenging years of deeply ingrained programming that prioritizes comfort. You are going to war with the weaker version of yourself that loves to negotiate, procrastinate, and drift. This routine is your battle plan. Following it, especially on the days you don't feel like it, is how you build self-respect. It's not about the tasks themselves. It's about the message you send to yourself when you do them. I'm the kind of person who does what they say they are going to do. My word is law. When you know with unshakable certainty that you will follow through on your own commitments, you become unstoppable. This architecture doesn't end in the morning. It extends through your day. During your work hours, you must be just as intentional. Practice time blocking. For 60 or 90 minutes, you work on your mission-critical task and nothing else. No phone, no email, no notifications. You give your full, undivided attention to what matters. This is how you produce high-quality work instead of just staying busy. And just as importantly, you need to engineer an evening routine, a shutdown ritual. Most people just let their day bleed into their evening. They work until they're exhausted, then collapse onto the couch and numb their minds with television until they fall asleep. This chaotic end to the day guarantees a chaotic start to the next one. A professional has a shutdown ritual. It's simple. At the end of your workday, take 10 minutes. Review what you accomplished. Acknowledge the progress. Then look at your plan for tomorrow and identify your MIT. You make the decision for tomorrow while your mind is still in work mode. Once that's done, you shut down. You close the laptop. You put the work away. This creates a psychological boundary. It allows your mind to truly rest and recover so you can show up strong the next day instead of feeling like you never really left work. Your routine is the engine of your transformation. 6 months is 180 days. That's 180 opportunities to execute this architecture. 180 opportunities to build discipline. 180 opportunities to prove to yourself that you are in control. Most people will waste those opportunities waiting for motivation to strike. But you won't. You have a system. You have a blueprint. This architecture isn't designed to make every moment feel good. It's designed to make you grow. And growth often feels like resistance. It feels like friction. It feels uncomfortable. In the next chapter, we are going to learn how to stop running from that discomfort. We're going to learn how to lean into it, how to use it, and how to make it the ultimate fuel for your transformation. Chapter 4. Choose progress. Every day over feeling comfortable. Again, let's get one thing straight, and this might be the most important principle you master in these 6 months. Comfort is not your friend. It presents itself as a friend. It feels safe. It feels familiar. It whispers to you that you've done enough, that you're tired, that you deserve a break. But it is a saboteur in disguise. It is the silent killer of dreams. It is the gravitational pull of mediocrity. And it is the same force that has been holding you back for years. Every single time you choose what is comfortable over what is necessary, you delay your progress. Every time you pick the easy option over the one that makes you grow, you are actively trading the powerful future you want for a moment of temporary relief. You have been making that trade for long enough. That is why you are listening to this. That is why you feel that gap between where you are and where you know you could be. You cannot have both. It is a fundamental law. You cannot grow and stay comfortable at the same time. One must be sacrificed for the other. Progress demands something from you. It demands effort. It demands focus. It demands that you intentionally and repeatedly step into discomfort. It demands that you stop running from things just because they are hard. And if you are truly serious about changing your life, then you must make a conscious decision to dethrone comfort from its position of power in your life. You must stop using it as a valid excuse to pause your progress. Growth doesn't happen when it's convenient. It doesn't happen when you're in the mood. It happens when you keep going despite how you feel. It's forged in the moments when every cell in your body is screaming at you to stop, to quit, to retreat to the couch, and you calmly say, no, and take the next step. Every day is filled with these pivot points. These small, seemingly insignificant choices that, compounded over time, determine the entire trajectory of your life. The alarm goes off. Do you get up or do you hit snooze? That's a choice between progress and comfort. You sit down to work. Do you tackle your most important task, or do you open a social media tab first? That's a choice between progress and comfort. It's lunchtime. Do you eat the clean meal you planned, or do you order the greasy junk food that will kill your afternoon energy? Progress or comfort? A difficult conversation needs to be had. Do you face it with honesty, or do you avoid it for another week? Progress or comfort, these moments are the battleground. And the person you become is determined by who wins these small battles, day after day. Every time you choose comfort, you cast a vote for the version of you that wants to stay the same. You reinforce the neural pathways of procrastination and avoidance. Every time you choose progress, you cast a vote for the powerful, disciplined version of you that you are trying to build. You strengthen the muscle of self-discipline. Most people are hopelessly addicted to the feeling of comfort. They don't even realize it has become their primary driver. And the most insidious thing about comfort is that it feels good, even while it is actively ruining your potential. That's what makes it so dangerous. It doesn't arrive with a warning label. It doesn't feel like failure in the moment. But its cumulative effect is stagnation. It keeps you stuck in the exact same place, with the exact same problems, year after year. And when you finally look back, you'll realize that comfort didn't protect you. It imprisoned you. It slowed you down. It made you settle for a life that was a fraction of what you were capable of living. So you must begin to wage a quiet war against it. You must start saying no to comfort when it stands in the way of the person you want to become. And I'll be direct with you. It will not feel good at first. In fact, it will likely feel awful. Your brain, conditioned for years to seek the easiest path, will rebel. It will generate frustration, irritation, and a powerful urge to quit. This is the critical moment. This is where most people fail. They misinterpret this internal resistance as a sign that they should stop. They think, this feels too hard, so it must be wrong for me. That is a lie. That feeling of resistance is the sign that you are doing it right. It is the feeling of growth. It is the feeling of a muscle tearing, so it can rebuild stronger. Choosing progress means choosing short-term, voluntary discomfort for long-term, permanent strength. It means doing what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. You have goals. You have a vision for your life. But you will not get there by staying where it feels safe and nice. You will get there by showing up every single day and doing the work that moves you forward. That might mean waking up when it's still dark and cold. That might mean staying in on a Friday night to work on your business. That might mean pushing through the last rep at the gym when your muscles are burning. That might mean being radically honest with yourself when it would be far easier to blame someone else. That is what progress demands of you, and progress is often quiet. It's not flashy. It doesn't always give you an immediate, visible result. But what it does give you is something far more valuable: pride, self-respect, the unshakable internal knowledge that you are a person who shows up. You cannot buy that feeling. You cannot borrow it. You can't fake it. You must earn it, one uncomfortable choice at a time. If you want to live the same year over and over again, then by all means, keep choosing comfort. Keep making your decisions based on how little effort you can get away with. But if you want to look back 6 months from now and be a fundamentally different person, stronger, clearer, more confident, then you must make a conscious shift in your operating principles. You have to tell yourself the truth. You must admit that your obsession with comfort has cost you far more than it has ever given you. Think about it. How much precious time have you already spent choosing the easy way? How many times have you said, "I'll start tomorrow"? Think about the routines you keep falling back into, even though you know with absolute certainty that they do not serve you. That's not a string of bad luck. That is a pattern of choosing comfort, and you break that pattern by doing something uncomfortable today. Right now, start simple. Pick one thing that you've been avoiding because it feels hard. Just one. It could be cleaning out that cluttered room. It could be making that sales call you've been dreading. It could be doing a 20-minute workout you'd rather skip. Do it. Finish it. Get through the resistance. And then tomorrow, do it again. Keep doing it until the discomfort fades and it becomes your new normal. This is how real change happens. Not with a big dramatic announcement, but with a series of small, private, courageous choices. Choices that consistently favor growth over comfort. You will be tempted to stop. Your mind, the master negotiator, will look for any excuse. It will tell you you're too tired, too busy, that it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Do not listen to that voice. That voice is the guardian of your current limitations. That voice has kept you stuck. Your job is not to argue with it. Your job is to recognize it, acknowledge it, and then keep moving anyway. You are not obligated to believe every thought that pops into your head. You get to decide which thoughts get to drive your actions. When you push through that wall of discomfort, something incredible starts to shift within you. You start to realize that you don't need to feel comfortable to make progress. You learn that your feelings don't have to dictate your actions. You start to trust your own strength. You develop mental toughness. That quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are no longer taking the easy way out is the fuel that will change everything. You don't need to transform your entire life overnight. You just need to stop choosing the version of you that avoids effort. That version doesn't care about your goals. That version only wants immediate relief. And the truth is, the more you feed that part of yourself, the weaker you become. But the more you deliberately, consistently choose progress, the more power you take back. This is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming the real you. The version of you that existed before you learned to settle. The version of you that doesn't shrink when life gets hard. The version of you that shows up without needing a cheerleader. The version of you that doesn't look for shortcuts because you know the value is in the work itself. There will be days when it feels like you're putting in the effort and seeing no return. Do not stop. This is the great filter. This is the point where most people quit. They are addicted to immediate results. And when they don't see them, they assume the process isn't working. But results don't arrive on your preferred timeline. They arrive when you have stayed consistent long enough to have earned them. And when they do come, they don't just show up in your bank account or on the scale. They show up in how you carry yourself, in the clarity of your thinking, in the way you handle pressure, in the calm certainty you project when you walk into a room. That is the real reward. Not just what you get, but who you become. So from this moment forward, make a new rule. When you face a choice between what is comfortable and what will make you grow, you choose growth. Every time. Choose effort. Choose the decision that makes you stronger. Do that today. Do it when you're tired. Do it when you're unsure. Do it when it would be so much easier to just sit back. Because every one of those choices is building something that comfort never could. A life you are proud to call your own. You've wasted enough days in the warm, stagnant waters of comfort. Now it's time to earn your progress. Chapter 5. Delayed gratification, rewiring your brain for long-term success. If you are serious about executing this 6-month transformation, you must understand that you are at war. But your enemy isn't a person, a circumstance, or a lack of opportunity. Your primary enemy is a chemical in your own brain, and a modern world that has been expertly designed to exploit it. That chemical is dopamine, and the war is against the addiction to instant gratification. Let's be very clear. Quick pleasure in itself is not inherently evil. The problem is that we now live in an environment of infinite, effortless, and immediate rewards. The world has been re-engineered to cater to the laziest, most impulsive parts of our nature, feeling bored for 30 seconds, There's a phone in your pocket with an endless scroll of novel content, each swipe delivering a tiny, satisfying hit of dopamine. Feeling a pang of hunger or stress? A hyperpalatable, sugar-laden snack is never more than a few steps away. Facing a difficult, complex problem at work? It's far easier to check your email and clear a few simple, unimportant messages, giving you a false sense of accomplishment. These things might seem small, but they are not. They are training sessions. With every scroll, every snack, every notification check, you are training your brain. You are teaching it to expect rewards now, without significant effort. You are conditioning yourself to be impatient. You are lowering your tolerance for boredom, for friction, and for the slow, often unrewarding process of doing meaningful work. The longer you live this way, the harder it becomes to build anything of value. Because anything worth building, a strong body, a successful business, a sharp mind, financial freedom, a healthy relationship, requires the exact opposite skill set. It requires patience. It requires the ability to delay gratification. It requires you to show up today and do the work that will not pay off for weeks, months, or even years. And every time you give in to the urge for a quick hit, you are robbing your future self of the focus and resilience needed to achieve your long-term goals. You have to retrain your mind. You have to stage a rebellion against your own impulses. You must build the mental muscle of delayed gratification. This means learning to do things today that won't provide a reward until much later. It means learning to sit in the discomfort of a difficult task without immediately reaching for a distraction. This is not an easy skill to build, especially when every app, every advertisement, every part of our culture is designed to steal your focus and sell you a quick fix. But you cannot live like everyone else and expect to achieve uncommon results. Most people are caught in a dopamine loop. They wake up, they scroll, they seek comfort, they get a quick hit, they crash, they feel vaguely dissatisfied, and they repeat the cycle. They numb their stress instead of solving the problems that cause it. They look for the next easy escape instead of architecting a long-term solution. And 6 months later, they are in the exact same place, wondering why nothing in their life feels better. You have to decide that you want a life of meaning more than you want a moment of pleasure. That is the fundamental shift. It happens in your mind first. It begins with awareness. You have to catch yourself in the act. In that moment, when your mind is telling you to abandon the difficult task and open a new tab, you must pause. And you must ask a simple, powerful question. What am I trying to avoid right now? Because most of the time, the chase for quick pleasure is just a cover story. It's an escape tactic. You're not just bored. You're avoiding the feeling of being stuck on a problem. You're not just hungry. You're avoiding the stress of a deadline. You're not just checking your phone for a second. You're avoiding the intimidating blank page of the report you need to write. People use stimulation to cover up their feelings of insecurity, fear, and inadequacy. But that doesn't solve the problem. It only delays it and allows it to grow larger in the shadows. I coached a young entrepreneur who was building a software company. He was brilliant, full of incredible ideas, but his company was going nowhere. He was constantly busy, always posting on social media about his hustle, but he never shipped a finished product. When we dug into his daily routine, the pattern was obvious. The moment he encountered a difficult coding problem or a challenging business decision, the real work, he would immediately pivot to something easier that gave him a quick reward. He'd answer some emails, post an update on Twitter that would get a few likes, or tinker with his website's logo. He was addicted to the dopamine of small, meaningless wins, and it was starving his actual business of the deep, focused work it needed to survive. He was working hard, but he was working on the wrong things, because the right things were too uncomfortable. When you train your mind to stop chasing these cheap rewards, you start to see your own patterns with stunning clarity. You start to notice how often you are pulled away from what truly matters. You realize how much of your precious time and mental energy has been spent numbing yourself instead of building yourself. And that awareness is your first real weapon. Because once you see the cage, you can begin to find the key. You no longer have to live on autopilot. You are no longer a slave to your every impulse. You can begin to consciously choose where to direct your focus. You can begin to engineer a life that runs on purpose and discipline, not on fleeting cravings. Start with one area. Maybe it's how you use your phone. Make a rule. For the first hour of your workday, the phone is in another room. Period. Non-negotiable. Maybe it's the food you reach for under stress. When you feel the urge, instead of going to the kitchen, you go for a 5-minute walk. You change your state instead of feeding the impulse. Maybe it's the endless stream of news and commentary. You decide to check it only once a day, in the evening, instead of letting it hijack your attention all day long. Whatever it is, start paying attention. And every time you catch yourself about to reach for that quick hit, you stop and you ask that question. Is this choice serving the person I'm trying to become? That simple, intentional pause can change the entire course of your day. It pulls you out of reactive mode and puts you back in the commander's seat. It reminds you that your life is not built on the big goals you talk about, but on the small choices you consistently repeat. This kind of mental training is not just about self-control. It is about reclaiming your personal power, the power to direct your own mind, the power to stay grounded and focused when the world is screaming for your attention, the power to persist through the long, quiet, boring phases of work where real progress is made. Most people do not have this power because they have never practiced it. But it is a skill like any other, and the more you practice it, the stronger you become. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be committed. Every day, you deliberately choose long-term growth over short-term pleasure. You are casting another vote for your future self. You are building strength. And over time, that strength becomes your default state. It becomes your identity. There's a profound difference between reacting to every urge and responding with intention. When you react, you are being led by your old primitive programming. When you respond, you are leading yourself. That is the habit you are building now, because every time you successfully delay a moment of cheap gratification, you create a space. And into that space flows something far more valuable, more clarity, more energy, more self-respect. These aren't just motivational words. These are the tangible results you will begin to feel when you stop wasting your life chasing things that give you nothing of lasting value in return. Look at your current routine. Be brutally honest. How much of it is structured around avoiding effort? How much of your day is spent consuming things that feel good in the moment but lead to regret an hour later? That's the hard truth. But it's also the key, because once you identify those patterns, you can begin to systematically dismantle them. You can build a different system, an architecture that works for you instead of against you, one that supports your goals instead of endlessly delaying them. You are not stuck. You have just been following a program that needs to be rewritten. Train your mind to crave growth. Teach yourself to find satisfaction in the process itself, even when it's slow and difficult. Remind yourself that the goal is not to feel good every second of every day. The goal is to build a life that feels strong, meaningful, and authentically yours. That takes work. That takes time. But the reward, a life of purpose and self-respect, is worth more than all the cheap dopamine hits the world can offer you. When you stay on this new path long enough, something inside you will fundamentally shift. You'll wake up with a sense of direction. You'll stop feeling like you're constantly behind. You'll stop needing external stimulation to feel alive, because now you are driven by an internal purpose, not an external impulse. This is where the real transformation happens. When you start saying no to the things you used to mindlessly reach for, you prove to yourself that you are serious. You prove that your vision for your future is more powerful than your craving for comfort in the present. And that proof is rocket fuel. It builds belief. It builds momentum. It makes the next difficult decision just a little bit easier. You stop negotiating with habits that do not serve your higher purpose. You stop waiting for the perfect time to start. You stop living as if you have an infinite number of chances. You've had enough short-term relief. You've seen where that path leads. It leads to a dead end of regret. It's time to try something else. It's time to make decisions that expand you instead of shrinking you. It's time to train your mind like your future depends on it. Because it does. You don't need to do everything at once. Just start with the next moment, the next choice. That is all it takes. One moment of discipline stacked upon another. Keep choosing the path that takes a little longer, feels a little harder, but gives you so much more in return. That is where your future is being built. But building this new mental muscle is only half the battle. Now you have to take this newfound focus and point it directly at the challenges you fear the most. It's time to step into the arena and do the hard work you've always avoided. That's where we go next. Chapter 6. The Arena of Action, Conquering the Hard Things. You avoid the change you are looking for, the deep, fundamental shift in your confidence, your results, and your self-respect is not hiding in another book, another video, or another productivity hack. It is waiting for you in the very place you've been refusing to look. It's on the other side of the hard things you consistently avoid. Everyone has them. A list of tasks, conversations, and decisions that loom in the back of their mind like a dark cloud. The work you know you need to do but keep postponing. The difficult conversation you need to have but keep finding reasons to delay. The financial audit you need to perform but are too afraid to face. That avoidance is not a passive act. It's an active drain on your life force. It builds a quiet, constant pressure in your subconscious. It is a source of low-grade chronic stress. And over time, it calcifies into frustration and a deep-seated disappointment with yourself. You wonder why you feel stuck, why you lack momentum, why your big goals always seem to remain just out of reach. But deep down, you know the answer. You are avoiding the work that matters. You are delaying the exact actions that would propel your life forward. Let me give you a simple, strategic truth. If something feels hard, it probably matters. If it makes you uncomfortable, it probably holds immense value. Most people operate under the dangerously flawed assumption that they should wait for the hard things to feel easy. They wait for the fear to disappear. They wait for a surge of motivation. But the hard things never get easier by waiting. The fear never disappears by thinking about it. The only way through is through. The only way the task becomes easier is by doing it, by facing it, by stepping directly into the arena while your hands are shaking, while your mind is screaming at you to run. That is the birthplace of growth. Not in the avoidance of difficulty, but in the deliberate confrontation with it. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You must fundamentally reframe what that feeling means. For the average person, discomfort is a stop sign. For the person who is building an exceptional life, discomfort is a compass. It is pointing you directly toward the area where your next level of growth is waiting. When you make a habit of avoiding what challenges you, you train your subconscious mind to settle. You lower your personal standards. You become a person who only operates when it feels safe and certain. And while that might keep you comfortable, it will never ever make you proud. And you cannot live a powerful life if you are not proud of how you show up each day. So let's make this practical. Right now, I want you to make a list. Pause this audiobook if you need to. Take out a piece of paper and write down the top 3 things you have been actively avoiding. The tasks, the responsibilities, the conversations. Write them down without judgment, without justification. Just look at them in the clear, cold light of day. This list is not a source of shame. It is a treasure map. These items are the gatekeepers standing between you and the progress you crave. These are the choices you've been putting off because they require a brief expenditure of effort, emotion, or courage. And until you start systematically dismantling this list, you are going to remain in the same place. You are not stuck because you are incapable. You are stuck because you are choosing easy over effective. You are stuck because your days are filled with the comfortable repetition of low-value tasks, not the uncomfortable challenge of high-impact action. You finish each day with the quiet, gnawing knowledge that you sidestepped something important. And that is why your confidence is bleeding out drop by drop, not because you failed at the task, but because you didn't even give yourself the chance to try. You told yourself that familiar lie, "I'll deal with it later," and that lie has become a habit. It has become your way of living. The only way to break that habit is with the sledgehammer of action. You take the first step. You do the hard thing today. Not next week. Not when you feel ready, because you will never feel ready. You do it now. You face what you've been avoiding, and you engage with it directly. It might be messy. It might not feel good, but it will fundamentally shift your momentum. That one single act of courage starts to write a new story in your mind. A story where you are the one in control. A story where you stop running. I once coached a sales executive named Michael. He was phenomenal at managing existing client relationships, but his growth had stalled because he had developed a crippling fear of making cold calls to new prospects. He would do anything to avoid it, reorganize his files, write elaborate follow-up emails to happy clients, spend hours researching prospects without ever picking up the phone. His avoidance had become his primary work. He told me, "Peter, I just need a better script, more confidence." I told him, "No, Michael, you need to make one phone call. Just one. Not to close a sale. Not even to have a good conversation. Your only goal is to dial the number and say hello. That's it. We can work on the script later." He fought me on it. It seemed too simple, too pointless. But he finally agreed. He made the call. It was awkward. The person was dismissive. It was, by all accounts, a failed call. But when we spoke afterwards, his energy was completely different. He wasn't defeated. He was buzzing. He said, "It was nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be." The monster in his head was 1,000 times more terrifying than the reality of the situation. The anticipation was the poison, not the action itself. The next day, he made 3 calls. The week after, 10. His fear didn't vanish overnight, but he had learned that action was the antidote. He stopped seeing it as making 100 cold calls and started seeing it as just making the next call. His career took off. Your hard things are your training ground. They build character. They build grit. They build a level of self-respect that is forged in fire, not given in comfort. The people you admire did not get where they are by seeking the path of least resistance. They learned to step into the struggle. They learned to remain steady when things got uncomfortable. You have that same capacity. But you will never discover it until you stop protecting your comfort and start intentionally challenging yourself. This is where true discipline is born, not in a perfect morning routine, but in the series of uncomfortable choices you make throughout the day. You answer the email you've been dreading. You open the bill you've been afraid to look at. You clean the room you've let fall into chaos. You apologize when you know you were wrong. You speak up in the meeting when it would be easier to stay silent. You say no to the request that compromises your boundaries. You do the workout on the day your motivation is at 0. You don't negotiate with that weak negotiating voice in your head. You don't go searching for a feeling of inspiration. You simply act. That habit alone, the habit of acting in the face of resistance, will change everything in your life. You'll learn a profound secret when you start doing this. The hard things are almost never as bad as your mind makes them out to be. It is the anticipation, the procrastination, the hours and days you spend thinking about the task that wears you out. That is what drains your energy. Once you actually begin, your mind focuses, your body moves, momentum takes over. And when it's done, you feel lighter, you feel clearer, you feel powerful. You realize that the fear was just a fog, and your action was the wind that blew it away. If this idea, the idea of using discomfort as your compass, is resonating with you, take a moment to share this audiobook with one other person who you know is ready to step into their own arena. These principles become even more powerful when you have an ally on the same path. This new way of living doesn't happen overnight. It happens by showing up each day, looking at your avoidance list, and asking yourself, what am I avoiding today? And then, without drama or negotiation, doing it. You build this muscle just like you build any other muscle in the gym. One rep at a time, one challenge at a time. And as you continue this practice, the hard things don't magically disappear from your life. But you become the kind of person who can handle them. That is the transformation. When you avoid hard things, you are actually carrying more weight, not less. You don't save energy by running from the work. You spend far more energy stressing about it, feeling guilty about it, and beating yourself up for not doing it. That is not a smart strategic trade. That is a draining, exhausting way to live. You will feel more alive, more powerful, after 5 minutes of uncomfortable action than you will after 5 hours of comfortable procrastination. The next 6 months of your life can be the most transformative period you have ever experienced, but only if you start doing the work you've been pushing aside. This is how change becomes real, not by adding more goals to your list, but by finally facing what's already on it. The thing you keep saying you'll get to later. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for someone else to push you. Push yourself. Look at the task. Look at the problem. Look at the truth you've been avoiding and do something about it. Start with the smallest possible part. Make the call. Send the email. Write the first sentence. Put on your running shoes. That is all it takes to get the momentum moving in the right direction. And once you start moving, do not stop. Keep going until the hard thing is no longer something you fear, but something you have finished. Every day you do this, you are building something. You are building confidence. You are building clarity. You are building a different level of self-trust. That is worth infinitely more than a life of comfort. That is what will carry you when life gets even harder, because it will. But by then, you'll be stronger. You'll be ready. There is no growth in avoidance. There is no peace in procrastination, and there is no pride in playing small. Do what needs to be done, especially if it's hard. Because when you consistently do the things that others avoid, you will begin to create a life that others can only dream of. You don't need more motivation. You need more action. You don't need more comfort. You need more courage, and you don't need more time. You need to start now, so stop waiting. Go face the thing you've been avoiding. Not tomorrow, today. That is where your real change begins. And every time you conquer one of these avoided tasks, you're doing more than just checking an item off a list. You are depositing evidence into a powerful internal bank account. The bank account of self-trust. And that currency is the most valuable asset you will ever own. In the next chapter, we are going to learn exactly how to build that account, action by action, until it is overflowing. Chapter 7. The Currency of Trust. Building Unshakable Self-Reliance. There is a quiet, heavy pain that builds up when you stop trusting yourself. It isn't a loud, dramatic event. It's a slow internal erosion. It begins the moment you make a promise to yourself, and then, when no one is watching, you break it. You say you'll wake up at 6 a.m., but when the alarm rings, you negotiate with your future self and hit the snooze button. You tell yourself you'll start eating clean today, but by the evening, you find yourself back in the comforting embrace of your old habits. You swear this is the day you'll work on your most important project, but you allow your hours to be eaten alive by distractions. These might seem like small, insignificant failures. A single broken promise doesn't feel like a big deal, but they are not insignificant. They are deposits of failure into the bank account of your self-esteem. Over time, with repeated withdrawals and no deposits, that account becomes overdrawn. And the consequence is a profound internal bankruptcy. This is the state of broken self-trust. It's when your actions are in constant conflict with your intentions. You say one thing, you feel another, but your behavior tells the real story. And you can only live with that kind of internal dissonance for so long before it poisons everything. It shows up in your confidence or lack thereof. It shows up in your hesitation to take on big challenges. You stop aiming higher because deep down, you have a long track record proving that you won't follow through anyway. And perhaps the most damaging part is that you stop seeing yourself as a person who can be relied upon, even by you. But here is the good news. This is a fixable problem. The foundation of your self-respect might be cracked, but it is not shattered beyond repair. You can fix it, not by talking about change, not by hyping yourself up with motivation, but by systematically and deliberately building proof. You are going to become a detective, gathering evidence that proves beyond a reasonable doubt that you can trust yourself again, and that trust is not a feeling you can just decide to have. It is a verdict you earn based on a mountain of evidence that you present to yourself day after day. You don't rebuild trust with grand sweeping gestures. You rebuild it one brick at a time. You start small, so small that it feels almost ridiculous. You set a promise for yourself that is so easy to keep, it is nearly impossible to fail. Not something massive like, I'm going to the gym for 2 hours every day. That's a recipe for failure if you're starting from zero. No, you start with something meaningful but manageable. And then you execute. You get it done. You don't wait to feel ready. You don't hope for perfect conditions. You do it simply because you said you would. I was coaching a woman, a brilliant architect, who was paralyzed by inaction. She had incredible designs she wanted to submit for competitions, but she'd let deadlines pass for years. She told me, "Peter, I've lost all faith in myself. I make these big plans and I just don't do them." She wanted a complex system to manage her projects. I told her we weren't going to talk about architecture for a month. Her only assignment for the first week was this. Every morning, the moment her feet hit the floor, she had to make her bed. Not later, not after coffee. Immediately, she was almost insulted. Make my bed? How is that going to help me win a design competition? I explained, it has nothing to do with your bed. This is about rebuilding the broken link between your intention and your action. We are training you to keep a promise. That's it, she did it. For 7 straight days, she kept that one simple promise. The next week we added another, drink a full glass of water right after. The week after, 10 minutes of stretching. Small, undeniable wins. After a month, she came to our session with a different energy. She said, "I don't know why, but I feel solid. I feel like I can actually do things." She hadn't designed a single building, but she had redesigned her own character. She had started to trust herself again. 6 months later, she won her first major award. Her architectural skills were always there. What she needed was the self-trust to actually apply them. That one small act of keeping a promise, repeated over and over, is the start of the process. You do it again the next day, and the next. And with each repetition, you feel something inside you shift. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It is the quiet, steady click of a foundation setting into place. You begin to walk differently. You think differently. You stop second-guessing every decision. Why? Because now you have evidence. You have a growing pile of receipts proving that when you say you will do something, you do it. That is what trust is. It is not an emotion. It is a reputation you build with yourself through repeated, consistent action. Every decision you make is a message to your subconscious. When you quit a workout halfway through, you are telling yourself, "My commitments are optional." When you push through that last, difficult set, you are telling yourself, "My word is law," and your brain is listening. It is constantly updating the story it tells about who you are, and that internal story is everything. Because the story you believe about yourself determines your actions. If your mind believes you are unreliable and undisciplined, you will continue to make choices that reinforce that identity. But if your mind starts to believe, based on hard evidence, that you are disciplined, consistent, and focused, you will begin to behave accordingly, almost automatically. The only way to change that internal story is through action. There is no shortcut. You cannot think your way or talk your way into a new identity. You must act your way into it. So start today. Choose your first brick. Wake up at the exact time you say you will. If you set your alarm for 6:30, then 6:30 is non-negotiable. Not 6:35, not after 5 minutes of scrolling. You get up and you move, not because you feel like it, but because it is time to rebuild who you are. That one small victory sets the entire tone for the day. Then choose another. If you commit to reading just 5 pages of a book, read the 5 pages. If you promise yourself no junk food for 24 hours, you hold that line. These acts matter more than you can possibly imagine. They are not about productivity. They are about integrity. They are about healing the relationship you have with yourself. You have had people in your life break their promises to you, and you know how much that damages trust. You've likely cut people out of your life for that exact reason. And yet, so many of us tolerate that same behavior from ourselves on a daily basis. You cannot expect to respect yourself if you are constantly disappointing yourself. That is not a lack of discipline. It is a pattern of self-betrayal. And the longer you live that way, the harder it is to believe you are capable of real, lasting change. But the very moment you stop making excuses for yourself and start showing up with consistency, that old negative narrative begins to crumble. And yes, there will be moments when you slip up. You will miss a day. You will fall short of a goal. You will feel the urge to just give up and go back to your old ways. This is part of the process. It is inevitable. But even in that moment of failure, you do not have to fall back into the old pattern of shame and quitting. The old you would have said, "See, I knew I couldn't do it. I'll start again next Monday." The new you says, "Okay, I missed that. But I am getting right back on track with my very next action." You do not need to wait for a new week or a new month to start over. You get back on track immediately. That is the critical difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck, repeating the same year over and over again. The ones who succeed have setbacks too, but they don't let a setback become a surrender. And the more you practice getting back up quickly, the more belief you build. Not borrowed belief from a motivational speaker, not temporary hype from a video. Real earned belief, the kind that shows up in your posture, the kind that comes through in the tone of your voice, the kind that allows you to walk into a challenge with a quiet certainty, because you know you have faced difficulty before and you did not run. So here is your first action step from this chapter. It is not just something to think about. It is something to do. In the comments below, I want you to write down the one small, unbreakable promise you will keep for the next 7 days. It could be, "I will make my bed every morning," or "I will drink a glass of water before my coffee," or "I will read for 10 minutes before bed." Declare it. Make it real. Committing to it publicly is the first step in holding yourself accountable. This proof takes time to build. It's not instant, but it compounds. It grows stronger with each kept promise. And over time, you won't have to convince yourself to believe in your own potential. You will know it because your daily behavior has become a living testament to it. That is what you are working toward. A version of yourself whose promises are ironclad. This version of you doesn't run on hype. It doesn't need external permission. It doesn't make excuses. It shows up. It adapts. It executes. It keeps its word. That is who you are becoming. Not through talk, but through work. Through action. Through the daily, deliberate accumulation of proof that you are someone you can trust. There is a profound peace that comes with knowing you can depend on yourself. You stop chasing external validation because you have it internally. You stop trying to prove your worth to anyone else because you are busy proving it to yourself every day. So if you have lost trust in yourself, do not waste another second feeling guilty about it. Start doing something about it today, not by making more grand promises, but by keeping one small one that is right in front of you. Choose it, keep it, then do it again. Stack those wins. Create your own evidence, and let that evidence build a foundation of self-reliance that no one can ever take from you. Once this foundation of self-trust is in place, you become a fortress. But even the strongest fortress can be compromised if you leave the gates wide open for negative influences. You must become a vigilant gatekeeper. In the next chapter, We will discuss one of the most difficult but necessary parts of this transformation: curating your environment and removing the people who drain your drive to improve. Chapter 8: The Gatekeepers of Your Mind. Curating an environment for success. One of the most difficult and uncomfortable truths about personal transformation is this: your growth will require you to outgrow some people. You can have the most dialed-in morning routine, the most disciplined habits, and an unshakable sense of self-trust. But if you marinate yourself in a negative, stagnant, or unsupportive environment every single day, you are fighting an uphill battle you will eventually lose. Your environment is not a passive backdrop to your life. It is an active force. It is either fueling your growth or poisoning it. There is no neutral ground. The decision of who you allow into your inner circle, who you give your time and energy to, is one of the most important strategic decisions you will ever make. Not everyone deserves a front-row seat to your life. Not everyone who calls themselves a friend is actually on your side. Some people don't come to support your evolution. They come to sabotage it, consciously or unconsciously. They come to distract you, to drain you, and to keep you exactly where you are. Because your growth makes them deeply uncomfortable with their own lack of it. If you are serious about this 6-month mission, you must become a ruthless, vigilant gatekeeper of your mind, your energy, and your time. The truth is, many relationships are not built on a shared desire for growth. They are built on shared comfort, shared complaints, shared history. And if you continue to surround yourself with people who have no ambition, who actively resist change, who laugh at your new discipline, who roll their eyes at your goals, then eventually their gravity will pull you back down. It's an almost invisible force. You'll start to shrink just a little at a time to fit their smaller version of reality. You'll stop talking about your big goals because you're tired of their cynical reactions. You'll start slipping back into old habits because it's easier than defending your new standards. You'll tell yourself you're just being loyal or patient, that you don't want to rock the boat. But in the process of trying to keep them comfortable, you will slowly, quietly assassinate your own ambition. You will lose your edge. You will lose your fire. You have to protect your mind as if it is your most valuable asset, because it is. Growth takes an immense amount of energy. It takes clarity. It takes relentless focus. And you cannot maintain that focus if you are constantly being pulled into low-energy conversations that lower your standards. You can't stay committed to your path if you are surrounded by people who constantly question your dedication. You cannot build a powerful life in an environment that is designed around comfort, gossip, and excuses. The architecture is incompatible. And deep down, you already know this. Take a moment and think about the 5 people you spend the most time with. Be brutally honest with your assessment. Do they challenge you to become better, or do they give you permission to stay the same? When you talk, is the conversation about ideas, goals, and growth? Or is it about other people, problems, and complaints? After you spend time with them, do you feel energized, focused, and inspired? Or do you feel drained, distracted, and a little bit cynical? These are not small questions. The answers to these questions will predict, with terrifying accuracy, the trajectory of your next 5 years. I once worked with a young man who had a dream of starting his own business. He was smart, he was hungry, but he was getting nowhere. His best friends, the ones he'd known since childhood, were still living like they were in college. Their weekends were about drinking and complaining about their dead-end jobs. Whenever he brought up his business idea, they'd mock him. "Oh, here we go, Mr. CEO. Why don't you just relax?" He loved them, but their presence was like an anchor tied to his ankles. He was trying to swim for the shore of his dreams while they were pulling him down into the depths of their own mediocrity. The hardest part of his growth journey wasn't learning business skills. It was creating distance from the very people he thought he couldn't live without. It was a painful, lonely process. But once he created that space, his business exploded. It wasn't that he suddenly got smarter. It was that he finally had the mental and emotional bandwidth to focus on what mattered, free from the constant drag of their negativity. Sometimes the most courageous act of self-love is admitting that you have outgrown a relationship. And that doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't mean you are better than them. It simply means you are walking in different directions. And if you want to keep moving forward, you cannot keep holding hands with people who are determined to walk backward. You have to make space. You have to clear the path. You cannot take everyone with you. You know exactly who these people are in your life. You feel it in your gut when you are around them. You feel your energy dip. You feel like you have to put on a mask to hide your ambition so you don't make them feel insecure. You find yourself constantly explaining your choices, always being told to lighten up, to stop trying so hard, to be more like them. That pressure, that is not support. That is fear disguised as friendly advice. Because when you choose to grow, you hold up a mirror to the people around you, and not everyone wants to look at their own reflection. So instead of rising with you, they will try to pull you back down to their level where they feel safe. You have to decide once and for all what kind of life you are committed to building. If you want a life of comfort and familiarity, then keep everyone around. Don't cause any friction. Keep saying yes when your soul is screaming no. Keep giving your precious time and energy to people who do not respect the direction you are heading. But if you want a life of clarity, purpose, and real transformation, then it is time to audit your inner circle. It's time to have honest, difficult conversations. And sometimes it's time to silently walk away. You don't need to make a dramatic announcement. You don't owe everyone a lengthy explanation. You simply stop making yourself available to the wrong energy. You stop answering calls that you know will drain you. You politely decline invitations that lead nowhere productive. You stop participating in conversations that are built on gossip and negativity. It is not about hatred. It is about strategic boundary setting. It's about choosing peace over chaos, progress over stagnation, growth over comfort. And when you start doing this, something powerful and immediate will happen. You will get your energy back. You will get your mental clarity back. You will start to feel more like yourself again, because you are no longer spending your days trying to filter your dreams through someone else's fear. You are no longer editing your ambitions to make other people feel comfortable. You are no longer apologizing for wanting more out of your life. You just start moving. You start building. You start living. And yes, it can feel lonely at first. Of course it can. When you leave behind the noise of draining relationships, you create a silence. But do not fear that silence. In that silence, you will finally hear your own voice again. You will reconnect with your own vision. You will get to rebuild your life based on your own high standards, without anyone trying to drag them down. That is when real growth accelerates. When you realize that not everyone is meant to be on your journey, and that it is okay, and then something else will happen. You will start attracting new people into your life. People who speak your new language. People who don't flinch when you talk about your big goals, but instead ask, how can I help? People who hold you accountable. People who value discipline, growth, and honesty. But these people cannot find you until you make space for them. If your life is cluttered with low-energy, low-vibration relationships, you won't even have the capacity to notice the high performers who are ready to connect with you. That is why the clearing process is a non-negotiable first step. This isn't about cutting off everyone who disagrees with you. It's about becoming intentional. It's about being fiercely protective of your mental and emotional environment. It's about recognizing that your circle is either an asset or a liability. It is either helping you evolve or holding you in place. So take that hard look. Ask the tough questions. Who consistently drains your focus? Who makes you feel small or foolish for trying? Who do you feel physically and emotionally exhausted after being around? Who consistently distracts you from your vision? Be honest, don't defend them. Don't make excuses. Just see the dynamic for what it is. Then take action. Set the boundary, create the space, and move forward without guilt. Because your future is not a group project. It is your sole responsibility. And you do not owe access to anyone who does not value your effort to grow. This is your season to build, to heal, to focus, to to rise, and not everyone can come with you. Some people are meant to be chapters in your story, not the whole book. Respect that. Honor your own journey, and never again allow someone to dim your light just because they are afraid to let their own shine. Your growth is worth protecting. Your future is worth fighting for. And if that fight requires you to remove the wrong people from your life, then do it with the quiet confidence of an architect who knows that sometimes demolition is the first step of construction. You're not being harsh. You are being honest. And in the architecture of your life, honesty is the highest form of self-respect. Once you've curated your environment and protected your mind, there is one final, critical principle you must master. It is the linchpin that holds this entire system together. It is the concept of radical responsibility. In the next chapter, we will learn how to take complete and total ownership of every choice, every action, and every outcome in your life. Chapter 9. The Ownership Mandate. Taking radical responsibility for your life. We have reached the final and most crucial principle in this blueprint. It is the keystone that locks the entire structure of your transformation into place. Without it, everything else we have discussed, the routines, the habits, the boundaries, will eventually crumble. This principle is the absolute commitment to taking radical ownership of every choice you make. The way your life turns out over these next 6 months, and for the rest of your years, will come down to the quality of the choices you make every single day. Not just the big, life-altering ones. Not just the ones people can see and applaud. I'm talking about all of them. The small, quiet decisions you make when no one is watching. The uncomfortable choices you are tempted to avoid. The ones you know you need to make, but keep delaying. Those are the choices that are actively architecting your future. Moment by moment, until you learn to take full, unflinching ownership of those choices, without blaming your circumstances, without avoiding the consequences, without shifting responsibility to others. Nothing of real substance will ever change. Let's be clear about what ownership is and what it is not. Ownership is not about guilt. It is not an exercise in beating yourself up for past mistakes. It is about power. It is the raw, empowering acceptance that your life right now is a direct reflection of what you have decided to do with your time, your energy, and your focus. You are not powerless. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are not stuck. You are making choices every hour of every day, and those choices are building your reality. The sooner you accept that profound truth, the sooner you can stop being a passenger in your own life and start being the pilot. Every day, you decide how you spend your time. You either invest it in an activity that moves you closer to your goals, or you waste it on a distraction that pulls you further away. That is a choice. You decide what you put into your body, the fuel that powers your mind and energy. That is a choice. You decide whether to keep the promise you made to yourself this morning or to break it again. That is a choice. You decide whether you will react to a situation with impulsive emotion or respond with strategic calm. Whether you will delay or deliver. Whether you will seek progress or settle for just being busy. If you are still using phrases like, "I didn't have time," or "I had no choice," or "that's just the way things are," you are actively giving your power away. You are choosing to tell yourself a story in which you are not in control, but you are. You may not control the economy. You may not control what other people say or do. You may not control every situation that life throws at you, but you always control how you show up. You always control your response. You always control what you do next. And that is where all of your power resides. It lives in that small gap between stimulus and response. Your power is in the decision to stop making excuses and start taking 100% responsibility for everything you can control. You have to stop waiting. Stop waiting for something or someone outside of you to change. A better job, a more supportive partner, a perfect moment to begin. That moment you are waiting for does not exist. And while you wait, your life is passing you by. More time is lost. More energy is drained. more of your precious confidence fades away. Ownership means stepping into the powerful reality that everything you do today matters. Not next year, not someday, today. So if you eat junk food all day, skip your most important work. Avoid your goals. Waste hours on mindless distractions and then tell yourself you had a bad day, as if it was some external event that happened to you. That is not ownership. That is avoidance. And the longer you live in avoidance, the more trapped and powerless you will feel. But the moment you shift your language and your mindset to, I chose to eat that food, I chose to waste my time, I chose to break my promise, something profound shifts inside you. It might feel uncomfortable at first, because there's no one left to blame. But it is also incredibly liberating. You stop lying to yourself. You see the direct link between your choices and your outcomes. And you can use that clarity to make a different choice next time. Ownership means you stop blaming other people for the situations you keep tolerating. If someone disrespects you and you continue to allow them in your life, that is your choice. If you stay in a job that is draining your soul, that is your choice. If you don't speak up for what you believe in, that is your choice. It is a hard pill to swallow, but it is also the cure. Because once you own your part in the situation, you reclaim the power to change your part. You stop waiting for someone else to fix it, and you take the lead. This doesn't mean everything that has ever happened to you is your fault. Life is complex and bad things happen to good people. But your growth is your responsibility. No one is coming to save you. No one owes you discipline. No one is going to knock on your door and hand you a better mindset. No one can force you to care about your own life. That is on you. And if you truly want to grow, you must stop being so casual with your choices. They are not small things. They are the building blocks of your destiny. When you take ownership of each one, you build a foundation of personal power that cannot be shaken by external circumstances. Start small. When you wake up, don't just tumble into the day. Consciously decide what kind of energy you are going to bring to it. Choose your attitude. Choose your behavior. If you commit to working for 2 uninterrupted hours, then you lock in and you finish the work. You don't outsource the responsibility for your focus to your fleeting motivation or your level of comfort. You simply follow through because you are the one in charge. You will feel yourself getting stronger the more you do this. Not because life gets any easier, but because you stop avoiding what needs to be done. And when things go wrong, and they will, you don't spiral into blame or despair. You look at the situation with the calm, clear eyes of an engineer. You ask, where did my strategy fall short? What choice could I have made differently? You learn from it. You adjust your approach. You improve. That is what ownership allows you to do. It keeps you moving forward because it is always focused on the solution, not the problem. When you start taking radical ownership of your life, people around you will notice. Some of them won't understand it. They are deeply invested in their own stories of blame and victimhood. Your commitment to responsibility will be a threat to their worldview. Let them be. You are no longer living that way. You are leading. You are making decisions based on the person you are committed to becoming, not on what feels good in the moment. This mindset changes everything. You become more disciplined because you understand that your results are a direct output of your effort. You stop negotiating with your bad habits because you've taken ownership of the damage they cause. You start to respect yourself on a deeper level, not because you are perfect, but because you are accountable. And when you make a mistake, you don't hide from it. You own it. You learn from it. You move on stronger. That is what real growth looks like. Taking ownership gives you a profound sense of clarity. You no longer waste time wondering why things aren't working out for you. You know exactly what needs to change. You stop blaming your environment and you start architecting a better one. You stop pointing fingers at others and you start looking in the mirror. That is how you reclaim your life. That is how you break the cycle of repeating the same patterns. Not by wishing for different results, but by making different choices. You have made enough decisions you regret. You have wasted enough days. You have delayed enough chances. From this point forward, you become intentional. You take full responsibility for the time you wake up, for the words you speak, for the way you treat your body, for how you use your focus, for how you handle pressure, and for how you move through discomfort. You choose the hard path when it leads to growth. You choose the honest path even when it's uncomfortable. You choose to act as if your entire future depends on what you do today. Because it does. And when you stack those conscious, owned choices day after day for 6 months, you will build something real. You will build momentum. You will build unshakable self-trust. You will build a life you do not need to escape from, because you will know in your bones that you earned it. It wasn't luck. It wasn't given to you. It was built, choice by choice, on a foundation of radical ownership. You get to decide how this next chapter of your life plays out. You can keep blaming, keep waiting, keep hoping. Or you can step up, take the lead, and start making the choices that align with the life you say you want. That is the moment everything begins to shift, not when your circumstances change, but when you do. When you stop running from responsibility and you start taking control, that is how you change your life in 6 months. That is how you take your power back, and you do it one choice at a time, starting now. Conclusion. The first day of your new future. We are at the end of this blueprint, but we are at the very beginning of your journey. You now have the principles. You have the strategic framework. You understand the architecture of discipline, the necessity of discomfort, the power of self-trust, the importance of your environment, and the absolute mandate of ownership. The gap between knowing these things and doing them is where most dreams disappear. The world is full of people who know what to do, but who never translate that knowledge into consistent daily action. You are not going to be one of them. The 6-month contract with yourself begins now. Not tomorrow, not next Monday. Now, your transformation is not some distant event on the horizon. It is the result of the very next choice you make. The choice to get up instead of hitting snooze. The choice to drink a glass of water instead of reaching for your phone. The choice to tackle your most important task instead of defaulting to distraction. The person you were when you started this audiobook is now in the past. You have the tools to build a new identity, one action at a time. Do not be overwhelmed by the scale of the journey. You do not need to see the entire staircase. You only need to focus on taking the first step. Your first step challenge is this. In the next 24 hours, I want you to complete one small, uncomfortable action that you have been avoiding. Make that phone call, clean that room, have that conversation. Complete that workout, just one. This first action is a declaration of intent. It is the first brick laid in the foundation of your new life. It is your proof to yourself that this time it's different. Music becomes more motivational. Your learning doesn't stop here. On the screen now are 2 tools to continue your growth. On the left is the full The Unshakable Mind playlist, where you can find all the blueprints for building mental toughness and resilience. On the right, you will find a video chosen for you by the algorithm, which is the perfect next step to sharpen your strategy. Choose your next move. And of course, if you're committed to this path, subscribe to the channel and join a community of builders. This is Peter A. Saul reminding you, success is not an accident. It is engineered. Build well,